Welcome back to more coverage of the top decks from Japanese City League events. Today we'll be looking at all of the decks that fall under the other category on the pie chart, even including some otherwise considered meta decks like Lugia VSTAR and Arceus VSTAR deck lists. In this video, we'll briefly look at deck lists, and I'll also tell you what place they came in at these City League events, but keep in mind these City League events are somewhat equivalent to something like a League Cup, so maybe 30 to 50 to 100 players, 5 Swiss rounds into a top cut of 8 players. Just because a deck list is being featured today does not mean that I think it is one of the best decks to play to a competitive tournament, but this is mostly a video to provide a resource for players who want to build all sorts of decks and see what kinds of decks are possible in our standard format. If you'd like to support my channel, make sure you subscribe for more Pokemon TCG content, and visit my sponsors and affiliates in the links down below. You can use coupon codes at pokecollect.com for a wide selection of sealed products, pre-orders for new releases, and unique mystery box items. At potownstore.com when shopping for Pokemon TCG Live code cards. Dragon Shield sleeves, my favorite card sleeves to use, and Into the AM apparel for comfortable and passionate clothing. If you have Pokemon TCG bulk lying around, start selling it with ease at tcgbulk.com. And don't forget to stop by PokemonCard.io for deck building, community forums, and news articles. You can find free and premium articles and video content for competitive Pokemon TCG at Metafy, and you directly support me if you become a Metafy member using my link. Information for Pokemon TCG coaching and gameplay reviews can also be found at the links down below. Let's start this deck list coverage with Alakazam EX, which placed top 8 at a City League. Alakazam EX is a card that was released in Pokemon 151, and it has a very unique attack that is able to attack from the bench, which no other Pokemon card has ever been able to do. This type of attack encourages Pokemon like Mimikyu, which can't be hit by EX and V Pokemon, and Klefki, which shuts off all basic Pokemon's abilities when in the active position, since Alakazam EX can safely attack from the bench. This particular deck list includes 2 new cards from Paradox Rift, Counter Catcher and the Technical Machine De-Evolution. Moving on to Arceus VSTAR decks, here we have an Arceus VSTAR Giratina VSTAR deck using Mew EX from the Pokemon 151 set, and the new cards featured here from Paradox Rift are the Jirachi, which protects your benched Pokemon from effects of attacks from basic Pokemon, and the Technical Machine De-Evolution. Arceus Giratina has been a kind of in the middle solid-ish deck for quite a while now. I think its power level just decreases ever so slightly with every new good card that we see come into the metagame, but Arceus Giratina is still a functional deck, and Judge Path is a great combination of cards to disrupt your opponent and shut down abilities. This next Arceus deck is going to have quite a similar core of Arceus and Bibarel, Judge, Iono, and Path, but this one's using Dialga VSTAR. Dialga VSTAR is a special Pokemon because its VSTAR attack does a lot of damage and it just gives you an extra turn. Anytime you can take an extra turn guaranteed in pretty much any card game, that's going to be a massive advantage. However, Dialga VSTAR does take a lot of energy to power up, and once it has used its VSTAR attack, it's not that impressive, and it should also be mentioned that Arceus VSTAR has the Starbirth ability, which you should be using as your VSTAR ability. So you have to choose between Starbirth or Star Chronos, and because of that, this deck's viability is kind of low, but it did get top 4 at a Japanese City League event. Next, we have an Arceus Goodra deck using a 3/3 line of the brand new Altaria EX, which has that ability that allows you to heal all of your Pokemon by 20 health. So if you have multiple Altarias in play, you can use that ability multiple times. I'm not a huge fan of Altaria, and it doesn't make much sense to me that this deck list is not playing Radiant Serena, which does the same thing but on a basic Pokemon. Even if you wanted to combine Radiant Serena and Altaria, you should at least be playing one Radiant Serena in this deck by my estimations. Goodra VSTAR should also be considerably weaker now that Roaring Moon EX came out. Goodra VSTAR did not like seeing Giratina VSTAR with the Star Requiem VSTAR power attack that can instantly knock out something, since Goodra tries to tank hits and heal, But now we have Roaring Moon EX with another instant knockout attack, so I don't think Goodra V-Star is very good going into this Paradox Rift metagame, but this was a top 4 deck list. Next we have a Regidrago V-Star kind of Dragon Box style deck with Arceus V-Star, and this placed in the top 8. Regidrago V-Star can use the attacks of any of your dragon Pokemon that are in the discard pile, so we'll see plenty of things that can discard cards, like for Ultra Ball, we have Professor's Research, and even Grant, which is going to serve no functionality for the actual effect of that supporter card, but it does allow you to discard cards from your hand, which you're going to want to do if you draw into Goodra, Tina, Duraludon, Noivern, or even this non-rule box Altaria as attackers, and you want them in the discard pile so you can copy them with Apex Dragon on Regidrago V-Star. And the last Arceus list we have to look at today is this Arceus V-Star Bibarel deck, very straightforward Arceus deck, but it also includes 2 Poppies, and all of the basic energy in the deck are lightning, so you can move those energies with Poppy over to Iron Hands EX or to Mew EX. Since you can't Trinity Nova energies onto those Pokemon, since Trinity Nova only attaches to V Pokemon, you'll have to work around that with the help of the Poppy supporter card. Next, I found one Hisuian Zoroark V-Star deck list that got 2nd place at a City League. Hisuian Zoroark V-Star came out in Lost Origin, and it has seen a tiny bit of success here and there, but because you have to damage your own Pokemon for Hisuian Zoroark V-Star to reach its full damage potential, it has been a pretty bad deck to play because Lost Zone decks can easily take advantage of you damaging your own Pokemon. However, the new Jirachi card that protects from things like Sableye's Lost Mine and Medicham V's Yoga Loop is a great addition to this deck, and could actually bring back some viability into this archetype. Next is Inteleon Urshifu, and this deck list placed in the top 8. I do really think that we'll see most Rapid Strike players move to an Iron Valiant EX Rapid Strike Urshifu deck, but there is still some merit to the Rapid Strike Urshifu Rapid Strike Inteleon VMAX deck, because Rapid Strike Inteleon VMAX is a pretty good attacker with 320 HP, and it can do 140 each turn while returning energies, tank a hit, use Cheryl to heal, and rinse and repeat, something that Iron Valiant EX does not provide to the deck. Like I said, I do think this is going to be overshadowed by the Iron Valiant EX Urshifu variant, but I'm not sure that the Inteleon Urshifu is obsolete just yet. Speaking of Iron Valiant EX, here is a Jolteon VMAX Iron Valiant EX deck list that placed into the top 16 of a City League. Jolteon VMAX does 100 damage and can also do 100 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon that already have damage counters on it. So Iron Valiant EX's Tachyon Bits ability is a match made in heaven for Jolteon VMAX. Jolteon VMAX, however, does award 3 prize cards when it's knocked out, and it doesn't do a whole lot of damage, so I worry that this variant of the deck is even weaker in the mid to end game than something like the Rapid Strike Urshifu variant. Next, we have a first place deck list for Klawf with Hisuian Electrode V and the new Brute Bonnet. Do note that this deck includes a supporter card Atticus, which is unreleased in North America, so just replace that with another draw supporter. It allows you to shuffle your hand and draw 7 cards, but you can only use it if your opponent's active Pokemon is poisoned. This deck list is all about special conditions because Klawf and Electrode V will be doing a lot of damage as long as you affect them with special conditions. For that, we have Spicy Seasoned Curry and Brute Bonnet, when combined with the new Ancient Booster Energy Capsule, is able to automatically poison your and your opponent's active Pokemon with its ability. This deck list also uses Hisuian Radiant Sneasler to increase the poison damage, and I actually think this deck is pretty functional. It's probably just going to stay a rogue deck, but it seems like a very fun deck to play, and definitely let me know if you try this one out and have any success with it, because it did place first place at a Japanese City League tournament. Next, we have a few Lugia V-Star deck lists. Now, these aren't exactly rogue decks at all, but they were under the other category in the pie chart of the metashare from top 16s of the City League, which means Lugia V-Star decks have not been doing hot enough to have their own slice on the metashare. There's nothing too special to note about this first deck list that we have here that placed second at a City League. It's using that Cobalion so it can do extra damage against dark Pokemon like Roaring Moon EX and Charizard EX, and also has the Mew EX as a free retreat pivot and also a possible attacker. Next, we have a colorless Lugia variant, also not playing a single new card from Paradox Rift. So while this deck list is very boring, it got top 4, and Lugia VSTAR is still a good deck. I'm not sure it's at the top of the metagame though. And then we have one top 16 placed Lugia VSTAR deck list. This one is actually using the new Earthen Vessel with some basic energies, the Radiant Charizard, and Iron Hands EX. A lot of people were excited to try putting all of this into the Lugia VSTAR decks because Earthen Vessel can discard an Archeops if you want, and then you can use these other attackers with basic energy plus supplemental special energies from Archeops, but I think there's just too much going on here, and I don't really foresee Lugia VSTAR being a great call for the upcoming meta, especially in this form. Next, we have a pretty interesting Palkia VSTAR deck that placed top 4. This Palkia VSTAR Chi and Pal Bibarel deck, which is an archetype we've seen before, is now also including the new Iron Valiant EX plus the Future Booster Energy Capsule, so you can pivot that Iron Valiant EX around and place a little bit of supplemental damage with the Tachyon Bits ability to make up for Palkia VSTAR sometimes missing the mark of how much damage you need to do. I think this archetype is actually underrepresented and underexplored, and I'd be excited to see it perform at an upcoming tournament. Now we've got some Regigigas action, and I know there's always some Regigigas fans out there that are just waiting for the deck to come back. Let me know if you think this is the time for the Regis to shine with this top 4 placing deck list from a City League, using the new Earthen Vessels and a collection of different basic energies for Regigigas to accelerate to your Regi attackers. We also have a top 8 deck list using 2 Thorntons and an Iron Hands EX in the deck list, so you can accelerate energies onto a Regi, but then Thornton it into an Iron Hands EX and take extra prizes with Amp You Very Much. I'm a bit skeptical that Regigigas would work in the current format. It looks a little bit too messy for me, and I'm not too thrilled about accelerating these basic energy cards with Regigigas instead of using the special energies like we used to in the pre-rotation Regigigas deck all the way back in the last format. But like I said, I know there's always diehard Regigigas fans to go around, so let me know what you think about the viability of this one. The top 4 placing deck list without Iron Hands, and then the top 8 placing deck list with Iron Hands EX. Next, we have a first place Toedscruel EX deck list. We have that new Toedscruel that came out with the Slime Mold Colony, and it turns out that might just be what Toedscruel EX needed, and of course also to not be bugged on Pokemon TCG Live, which, spoiler alert, the new Toedscruel is now bugged on PTCG Live in a whole new way, because its ability stops your opponent's superior energy retrievals from working, which works just fine on PTCG Live, but it also actually stops Pokestop, because Pokestop puts the cards into the discard and then into your hand, so Slime Mold Colony actually should be stopping that. It's not working that way currently on PTCG Live, but it does work that way in tournaments. Toedscruel EX actually has some real potential, admittedly, especially because Charizard EX and Roaring Moon EX are 2 really great cards in the metagame, and they're both weak to grass. I'm not exactly sure that this deck is going to be going from 0 to hero, but it could actually be playable now, and here's this first place deck list from a City League to prove it. Moving on to some more grass Pokemon, we have this Torterra deck here using the new Luxurious Cape, which adds 100 HP to a non-rule box Pokemon, but also makes it worth 1 more prize card. Also really notable for this deck is the Technical Machine Evolution, which a deck like this that wants a board full of evolutions loves to see. Also Counter Catcher, because this deck is trying to go behind on prizes using those TM evolutions early on, and then getting to attack with Reversal Energy and using Counter Catcher as your gust effect. The final new EX Pokemon from Paradox Rift we'll be covering in today's video is Serena EX. Serena EX has a very unique attack that can put any of your opponent's Pokemon down to 30 health. This can then be paired with Hisuian Braviary to clean up knockouts all over the opponent's board. And you also have Panic Mask to stop your opponents from attacking you after you put them down to just 30 health. Also TM de-evolution, so if you're putting evolution Pokemon down to 30 health, you can devolve them all, and then their previous stages will be KO'd. This is a rather gimmicky deck, but it also kind of works, which is pretty rare for decks like this with such a gimmicky game plan. But I've actually seen this deck work more often than I thought it would. So let me know how you've liked this new Serena EX, and if you think it's just a nuisance on the PTCG live ladder, or if it could actually be a real tournament deck. And last but not least, we have Zoroark Stage 1s with a whole bunch of Stage 1 Pokemon going on here. What you really need to know is that Zoroark can change into any Stage 1 from your discard pile, and this deck has been held back by the Lost Zone archetype for so long. But with the new Jirachi that's going to protect your Pokemon from things like Sableye Lost Mine and Medicham V's Yoga Loop, maybe this deck can finally be competitively viable. I feel like we say that with every new set that comes out, but could this finally be the one for Zoroark Stage 1s? That's all the coverage I have today from the Japanese City League results. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you didn't catch the last one and you happened into this video, make sure you watch part 1 of this coverage where I looked at all of the meta decks from this top 16 data. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.